The stars above Earth had never looked so threatening. 40 massive warships hung in space like predators circling wounded prey. Each vessel stretched longer than the tallest buildings humanity had ever constructed. Their hulls gleamed with strange metals that reflected light in colors human eyes had never seen before. Weapons arrays bristled from every surface, each one capable of turning a city into dust within seconds. Commander Velthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the small blue planet below. His four eyes blinked independently as he processed the data streaming across his screens. This was routine work for him. He had done this 17 times before with other newly discovered species. The pattern never changed. Arrive with overwhelming force, demand surrender, accept their submission, move on. But something felt different this time. The humans had detected his fleet 3 days ago. They should have been panicking. They should have been flooding communication channels with desperate pleas for mercy. Instead, they had sent a single message. It was polite. It was calm. It requested a meeting. Velthar found this amusing. These creatures had no idea what they were facing. His sensors had already mapped every human installation in their solar system. He had counted their ships. 23 vessels barely capable of reaching their own moon. Their weapons were primitive projectile systems that might scratch his hull's paint. Their defensive stations around their planet couldn't stop even a single volley from his smallest frigate. They were helpless, yet they wanted to talk. "Sir, the human representative is requesting permission to board," his communications officer announced. Velthar's mandibles clicked in what his species considered a smile. Let them come. This should be entertaining. An hour later, Ji-Yon stepped onto the bridge of an alien warship. She wore a simple gray suit and carried nothing but a small data pad. Her face showed no fear, though her heart raced inside her chest. She had volunteered for this mission knowing she might not return. But someone had to buy Earth time, and she was good at talking. The bridge was enormous. Crew members from different alien species worked at stations that looked like twisted sculptures of metal and light. The air smelled of copper and something else she couldn't identify. At the center of it all stood Commander Velthar. He was tall, easily 3 meters, with dark purple skin and 4 glowing eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on his face. His body was covered in what looked like ceremonial armor, though Ji-Yon suspected it was actually advanced technology. When he spoke, a device on his chest translated his words into Korean. "Welcome, human. I am Commander Velthar of the Galactic Coalition. You stand aboard the warship Eternal Judgment. I assume you've come to discuss terms of your surrender." Ji-Yon bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "Thank you for meeting with me, Commander. My name is Ji-Yon. I represent Earth's unified government. We received your message about joining the Galactic Coalition." "Message?" Velthar's voice carried amusement. "That was not a message, human. That was a statement of fact. Your species will join the coalition. The only question is whether you join as subjects who obeyed, or as a cautionary tale about those who resisted." "I understand," Ji-Yon said calmly. "Before we discuss terms, would it be possible to request more time? 3 days is not enough for our world to make such an important decision." Velthar studied her. Most species begged at this point. They cried. They offered tribute. This human just stood there, speaking to him as if they were equals negotiating a business contract. It was almost insulting. "You want more time?" he asked. "Time to do what? Build weapons? Your technology is centuries behind ours. Time to evacuate? You have nowhere to go. Time to prepare your military? I counted your ships, human. All 23 of them." "Time to understand," Ji-Yon replied. "You're asking 7 billion people to accept a new reality. We need to explain this to our population. We need to organize a proper response. Surely the coalition understands that major decisions require proper consideration." Velthar's mandibles clicked again. She was still pretending this was a negotiation? Fine. He could indulge this fantasy for a moment. His fleet wasn't going anywhere, and watching lesser species struggle was one of the few entertainments this job offered. "You have 1 rotation of your planet," he said, 24 of your hours. At the end of that time, you will transmit your unconditional surrender, or I will demonstrate what happens to species that waste the coalition's time. Do you understand?" "Perfectly," Ji-Yon said. "Thank you for your patience, Commander. Before I go, may I ask a question?" "Speak. How many species are in the Galactic Coalition?" 17, soon to be 18. "And how many of those 17 chose to join willingly?" Belthar's eyes brightened with what might have been respect. This one was clever. None of them, he admitted. All were conquered. But now they thrive under coalition protection. They contribute to something greater than themselves. They have access to technologies and resources they never could have developed alone. Conquest leads to prosperity, human. This is the way the galaxy works. Jian nodded slowly. I see, that's helpful to know. May I return to Earth now? Of course. Enjoy your last day of independence. Back on Earth, Jian materialized in the transport chamber of the United Defense Headquarters. Minho was waiting for her, his face tight with stress. He had been Earth's defense coordinator for 3 years, and in all that time he had never faced anything like this. Well, he asked. He's exactly what we expected, Jian said, walking past him toward the command center. Arrogant, overconfident, he thinks we're primitive and helpless. We are helpless, Minho said, following her. Jian, we can't fight those ships. Every simulation we've run ends with Earth's total destruction within 6 hours. We have no defense against their weapons. I know, Jian said calmly. Then why are we pretending we have options? We should just surrender now and hope they're merciful. Jian stopped and turned to face him. Do you remember what I told you when I volunteered for this mission? You said someone had to buy us time. And did I buy us time? 24 hours. What good does that do? Jian smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. Minho, humanity has been fighting wars for thousands of years. We've learned something that these aliens clearly haven't. The battle starts long before the first shot is fired. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that while I was on that ship, I wasn't just talking to Commander Velthar. I was watching. I was listening. I was learning. And do you know what I discovered? Minho shook his head. That ship has a crew of 400 individuals from 8 different species. I saw how they look at each other. I saw the hierarchy. I saw who respects who and who resents who. I saw the cracks, Minho. And where there are cracks, there are opportunities. You can't seriously think we can turn them against each other in 24 hours. No, Jian agreed. But I think we can start. And starting is what matters. Now where are Hyunwoo and Somin? We have work to do. Above Earth, Commander Velthar returned to his quarters confident that tomorrow would bring another easy victory. He had no way of knowing that the real battle had already begun, and that humanity's most dangerous weapons weren't mounted on ships at all. They were ideas, and ideas could travel anywhere. 18 hours had passed since Jian's meeting with Commander Velthar. In a small conference room deep beneath the streets of Seoul, 5 people sat around a table covered with data screens and documents. The weight of Earth's future pressed down on all of them. Hyunwoo pushed his glasses up his nose and continued his presentation. He was a historian, someone who had spent his life studying how humans fought wars. Now that knowledge might save the world or at least buy it a few more days. Commander Velthar agreed to review our historical records, he said. He thinks it's funny. He thinks we're stalling. But he said yes, and that's what matters. What exactly are we showing him? Minho asked. He still looked skeptical about this entire plan. Somin, who sat across from him with her fingers dancing across a keyboard, answered without looking up. Everything. We're giving him access to thousands of years of human warfare. Every conflict. Every battle. Every war. Won't that just prove how primitive we are? Minho argued. Our weapons are toys compared to theirs. That's exactly what we want him to think at first, Jian said. She had barely slept, but her eyes were sharp and focused. Let him see our old wars. Let him see swords and arrows and gunpowder. Let him feel superior. And then, Minho asked. Then he sees how we actually won those wars, Hyunwoo said with a small smile. 6 hours later, Velthar sat in his command chamber watching the human historical files. His staff had warned him this might be a waste of time, but he was curious. Understanding how a species fought told you a lot about how they thought. The early records were exactly what he expected. Humans hitting each other with primitive weapons, formations of soldiers marching at each other, simple tactics, basic strategies. It was almost sad how slowly they had developed. But then the records changed. A war between 2 human nations showed something strange. One side had fewer soldiers and worse weapons, yet they won. Velthar watched closely. They didn't win through better fighting. They won because they had convinced half of the enemy's soldiers to switch sides. They had spread information, true and false, that made the enemy doubt their leaders. Another war showed a small nation defeating a much larger empire. Not through battles, but by making the war so expensive and unpopular that the empire's own citizens demanded their government quit. The large empire had better weapons, more soldiers, more resources. They lost anyway. Velthar kept watching. Each conflict showed the same pattern. Humans rarely won through superior force. They won through deception, manipulation, information control, and psychological warfare. They turned enemies against themselves. They made wars too costly to continue. They found the weak points in social structures and exploited them. It was disturbing. "Bring me the human liaisons," Velthar ordered. Hyunwoo and Soman arrived an hour later. They had been waiting for this call. Velthar's translator device made his voice sound cold and analytical as he spoke. "These records you provided," he said. "They show unusual tactics." "Explain them." Hyunwoo stepped forward. "Of course, Commander. What you're seeing is the evolution of human warfare over several thousand years. We learned early that the strongest army doesn't always win. The smartest army wins." "Smart," Velthar repeated. "You mean deceptive. You show your own species lying, spreading false information, turning allies against each other. This is not warfare. This is treachery." "We call it strategy," Soman said quietly. "May I show you something specific, Commander?" Velthar gestured for her to continue. Soman activated a holographic display. "This is a conflict from our recent history. Two nations roughly equal in military power. But one nation had something special. They had complete control of information networks. The display showed data streams flowing between cities, news reports being altered, social media platforms spreading carefully crafted messages. It showed how public opinion shifted like water flowing downhill, guided by invisible channels. They didn't destroy the enemy's weapons," Soman continued. "They destroyed the enemy's will to fight. They made the enemy's own population demand peace. They made the enemy's soldiers question why they were fighting. They made the enemy's leaders look foolish and incompetent. The war ended without a final battle because one side simply stopped believing they could win." Velthar stood silent for a long moment. "This is the warfare you developed? Information? Psychology? Manipulation?" "Yes," Hyunwoo said. "Commander, humans learned something important thousands of years ago. Destroying your enemy is easy if you have bigger weapons. But it's expensive, it's destructive, and it makes everyone hate you afterward. We found a better way. Make your enemy defeat themselves." "Impossible," Velthar said, but his voice carried less certainty than before. "In real warfare, ships and weapons matter. What you're describing is politics, not combat." "Is there a difference?" Soman asked. "Commander, you lead a fleet of 17 species. Do they all want to be here?" Velthar's eyes narrowed. "Loyalty is enforced through strength. But what happens when strength isn't enough? What happens when the cost of loyalty becomes higher than the value of staying together?" "That is theoretical nonsense," Velthar said, but he sounded less convinced. "The coalition has existed for 400 years. It is strong because we have the best weapons, the best ships, the best military structure. Your tricks and information games cannot stop plasma cannons." "You're absolutely right," Jiyeon said. She had been standing quietly in the corner, but now she stepped forward. "Commander Velthar, we're not saying we could defeat your fleet in battle. We're saying we've never needed to defeat anyone in battle. We win long before ships start firing." "Prove it," Velthar challenged. Jiyeon smiled. "We already are. Commander, may I ask a question? How many crew members on your flagship are from the Vex species?" Velthar blinked. The change in subject confused him. 43, why? "And when was the last time a Vex officer received a command position in the Coalition fleet?" "That information is classified." "The answer is never," Soman said, bringing up data on her screen. "The Vex are always support crew. They maintain systems, they monitor sensors, they do essential work, but they never command. We found this information in your own public records, Commander. It's not secret. Everyone knows it. The Vex certainly know it. What is your point?" Velthar demanded. "No point," Jiyeon said innocently. "Just an observation. We're trying to understand the coalition structure. It's fascinating how different species work together despite their different positions." Velthar stared at her. Something in her tone suggested this conversation wasn't as innocent as it seemed, but he couldn't identify the threat. There was no weapon in her hand. She wasn't issuing any demands. She was just talking. That was what bothered him. "This meeting is over," he announced. "You've shown me your historical records. I am not impressed. Humanity developed clever tricks because you were too weak to develop proper weapons. Those tricks won't save you tomorrow." "Of course not, Commander," Ji-yeon said politely. "Thank you for your time." As they left the flagship, Minho finally understood what Ji-yeon was doing. She wasn't trying to convince Velthar of anything. She was planting seeds, small doubts, tiny questions. The Vex and their lack of advancement. The cost of maintaining loyalty through force. The difference between winning battles and winning wars. Back on Earth in the command center, Minho pulled Ji-yeon aside. "That conversation about the Vex, that wasn't random, was it?" "Nothing is random," Ji-yeon replied. "Velthar will think about what we said. He'll wonder why we asked about the Vex, and while he's wondering, other things will start happening." "What things?" Taehyung, Nari, and Jinsu boarded coalition ships this morning as technical advisors and cultural liaisons. "They're good at their jobs, Minho. Very good. By now they're already making friends, asking questions, and listening carefully to what people aren't saying." And Soman, the cyber warfare specialist, looked up from her computer and smiled. "Commander Velthar's ship has very good security, but while we were connected to their system showing them our historical records, I might have left behind some monitoring programs. Nothing harmful. Just enough to watch and listen." Minho sat down heavily. "We're actually doing this. We're going to war with an alien fleet using nothing but information and psychology. We've been doing this for thousands of years," Hyunwoo reminded him. "This time we just have a bigger stage." Above Earth, Velthar tried to sleep but couldn't. He kept thinking about the humans' questions about the Vex. Why had she asked that? What did it matter? It didn't matter, he told himself. Tomorrow would bring humanity's surrender, and this would all be over. But the doubt remained, a small seed planted in his mind, beginning to grow roots in the darkness. Taehyung had always been good with people. It was his gift, the thing that made him valuable. Now, standing in the engineering section of a coalition warship, that gift might save his entire species. "The translation matrix is definitely misaligned," he said, pointing at a screen covered in alien symbols. "See this power fluctuation? That's why you're getting communication delays." The Vex engineer beside him leaned closer. Her name was something humans couldn't pronounce, so Taehyung just called her engineer. She seemed to appreciate the simplicity. "You can read our systems?" she asked, surprised. "Basic patterns are universal," Taehyung replied with a friendly smile. "Energy flows the same way whether you're human or Vex. The symbols are different, but the logic underneath is identical. Here, let me show you." He spent the next hour working alongside her, fixing problems that the ship's crew had been tolerating for weeks. Minor issues that weren't critical but were annoying. A sensor that flickered. A door that stuck. A display that buzzed. Nothing that would threaten the ship, but everything that made daily life just a bit harder. "You're very skilled," the engineer said when they finished. "Why does Earth send a technical expert to us?" "We are the enemy, are we?" Taehyung asked casually. "I mean, yes, your fleet is here to make us join the coalition. But you're not really our enemy, are you? You're just doing your job. Following orders, same as I am." The engineer was quiet for a moment. "Orders," she repeated softly. "Yes, always orders." Taehyung heard something in her voice. Frustration? Resentment? He filed it away for later and changed the subject. "How long have you been with the coalition fleet?" 16 years. 16 years. You must be very experienced. Do you command your own engineering team?" "No," she said. The word came out flat and cold. "Vex do not command. We maintain, we repair. We monitor. But we do not lead." "That seems inefficient," Taehyung said carefully. "You know these systems better than anyone. Shouldn't the people who understand the technology be the ones making decisions about it?" "Should," the engineer agreed. "But should and is are different things." Taehyung nodded sympathetically. He didn't push further. Seeds planted. Time to let them grow. 3 ships away, Nari was having tea with a group of junior officers in what passed for a break room. She had learned quickly that every species in the coalition had their own version of a hot beverage, and sharing drinks was a universal way to build trust. "So on Earth, everyone can apply for any position?" a young officer asked. He belonged to a species called the Kelrath, with blue-gray skin and 3-fingered hands. "Of course," Nari said. "If you have the skills and training, you can try for any job. We have human leaders, But we also have leaders from every background, every region, every culture. The best person for the job gets the job. Here it is different, another officer said quietly. She was Vex, Nari noticed. Here your species determines your maximum rank. Vex can reach level 6. Kelrath can reach level 8. Only 3 species can reach level 10. That sounds complicated, Nari said innocently. How do you keep track? We don't need to keep track, the Kelrath officer said with a bitter laugh. We simply know our place. The Coalition decided it 400 years ago. The hierarchy is fixed. But what if someone is brilliant? What if a Vex engineer is smarter than everyone else? Doesn't matter, the Vex officer said. Smart Vex reach level 6. Stupid higher species reach level 10. This is the way. Nari sipped her tea. That must be frustrating. Frustration is not permitted, the Kelrath said, but he smiled slightly. Of course, frustration also doesn't care if it's permitted. They all laughed at that. It was a small moment, a brief connection, but Nari saw the looks they exchanged. The understanding that passed between different species who shared a common experience of being limited by circumstances they couldn't control. Later, as she walked back to her quarters, Nari recorded a quiet message on her encrypted communicator. Multiple crews expressing frustration with Coalition hierarchy, particularly strong among Vex and Kelrath. Recommend further cultivation of these relationships. On the flagship, Jinsu worked in a different way. He was assigned as a cultural liaison, which meant he attended meetings and explained human customs. It was boring work on the surface, but it gave him access to observe Coalition leadership dynamics. He noticed everything. Who spoke first in meetings? Who deferred to whom? Who made eye contact and who avoided it? Who got credit for ideas and who was ignored? Every interaction revealed information about power structures, personal relationships, and hidden tensions. During one meeting, a junior commander suggested a more efficient patrol pattern. The idea was good, Jinsu could see that immediately. It would save energy and provide better coverage. But the senior commander dismissed it without consideration. Later, Jinsu found the junior commander and asked about the suggestion. Your patrol idea was excellent. Why didn't the senior commander accept it? He's from a higher-ranked species, the junior commander explained. He cannot accept suggestions from lower ranks. It would show weakness, even if the suggestion is better, especially if the suggestion is better. Jinsu filed this away. The Coalition wasn't just hierarchical by species. It was hierarchical by pride. Good ideas died because accepting them from the wrong source was seen as humiliation. A hierarchy based on pride was fragile. It could be pushed. On Earth, Soman worked in a room filled with screens. Her fingers moved constantly across keyboards, her eyes tracking dozens of data streams simultaneously. She was doing something that would have been impossible a week ago. She was inside the Coalition's communication network. The humans hadn't broken their encryption. That would have been noticed immediately. Instead, during their visit to the flagship, they had simply inserted monitoring programs into non-critical systems. Programs that watched and recorded but never interfered. Programs that looked like normal diagnostic tools. Through these programs, Soman could read message traffic between Coalition ships. She couldn't decode the encrypted military communications, but she didn't need to. Most communication wasn't encrypted. Ship crew sent personal messages to each other. Officers complained about their commanders. Engineers discussed technical problems. Cultural groups organized social gatherings. It was all valuable intelligence. Interesting, Soman muttered, reading through a series of messages between Vex crew members. They were discussing the human visitors. Specifically, they were discussing how helpful Taehyung had been with repairs. Finally, someone treats us like engineers instead of servants, one message read. Another replied, Did you see how he asked for engineers' opinion? When does anyone ask our opinion? Soman smiled. Taehyung was doing his job well, making friends, building trust, showing respect to people who weren't used to receiving it. She continued monitoring, looking for patterns. Which species talked to which? Who complained about what? Where the pressure points were in Coalition social dynamics. Every piece of information was a potential tool. A message from the flagship caught her attention. It was from Commander Velthar to his second officer. Have Vex crew been acting strange? Check for any unusual behavior. Report anything suspicious. So Velthar had noticed something. Or maybe Jion's questions about the Vex had made him paranoid. Either way, he was watching his own crew with suspicion now. That was good. Paranoia created mistakes. Salmon sent an encrypted summary to Jian. Coalition leadership showing increased concern about crew loyalty. Recommend accelerating timeline. In the command center, Jian read the message and nodded. Everything was proceeding as planned. Taehyung, Nari, and Jinsu were building relationships with lower-ranked crew members. Soman was gathering intelligence. Seeds of doubt were growing throughout the coalition fleet, but they were running out of time. Velthar's deadline was approaching. Minho entered the room looking stressed as always. Jian, we have 18 hours left. What's our endgame here? Even if we turn half the fleet against Velthar, they still have enough firepower to destroy Earth 10 times over. The endgame isn't about firepower, Jian replied. It's about making a fight not worth having. Minho, what's the coalition's greatest strength? Their weapons? No, their unity. 17 species working together. That's their power. Now what happens if that unity fractures? They fall apart, Minho said slowly. Exactly. And we don't need to make them fall apart completely. We just need to make them uncertain. Make them question whether conquering Earth is worth risking their alliance. Make them wonder if their fleet will even follow orders when the time comes. That's a very thin line to walk. Every great strategy is a thin line, Jian said. But we're good at walking thin lines. Humans always have been. Above Earth, on various coalition ships, crew members were having conversations. Quiet discussions in break rooms and maintenance tunnels. Conversations about hierarchy, about fairness, about who deserved respect and who actually received it. Small conversations that meant nothing on their own. But together they formed a current. And that current was beginning to flow against the established order. Velthar felt it. He couldn't explain it, but he felt something changing in his fleet. A tension that hadn't been there before. A hesitation in how his crew responded to orders. He told himself it was nothing. Just nerves before a simple operation. The deadline arrived with the cold certainty of mathematics. 24 hours had passed. Earth had not surrendered. Commander Velthar stood on his bridge preparing to deliver the consequences he had promised. All ships move to attack positions, he ordered. Target military installations first. Orbital defenses second. Population centers only if they continue to resist. The order went out across 40 ships. Standard procedure. Simple command structure. It should have been instant. Instead, there was a delay. Sir, his communications officer said, confusion in his voice. 3 ships are not responding to movement orders. Which ships? The Dawn Striker, the Void Runner, and the Silent Edge. All 3 have Vex majority crews. Velthar's mandibles clicked in irritation. Send the order again. Direct command override, more delay. Then a message came through on the main screen. The face that appeared was Vex. Someone Velthar vaguely recognized as an engineering officer named something he couldn't pronounce. Commander Velthar, this is Engineer First Class of the Dawn Striker. We are not moving to attack position. You are refusing a direct order? Velthar's voice was dangerously quiet. We are not refusing, the engineer said. Her voice was steady but firm. We are requesting clarification. Why are we attacking a species that poses no threat? What strategic value does Earth provide that justifies military action? The coalition does not require justification to its maintenance crews, Velthar snapped. You follow orders or face consequences. Consequences, the engineer repeated. Yes, we are familiar with consequences. We face them daily for being Vex. For 400 years we have followed orders. For 400 years we have been told we are valuable but never valued. The humans showed us records of how they treat their engineers. With respect, with authority, with the opportunity to lead. They made us remember what we gave up when we joined the coalition. The transmission cut. Velthar stared at the empty screen. This was impossible. This didn't happen. Crews didn't question orders. Species didn't rebel. The hierarchy was absolute. Sir, the communications officer said nervously, we're receiving multiple transmissions from other ships. Priority channels. Put them through. His screen filled with faces, captains, first officers, engineers, all speaking at once. Velthar caught fragments of their messages. Doubt about the mission. Parameters. Crew morale is critically low. Questioning. Whether Earth actually presents a threat. Leaked. Documents showing leadership profit from military campaigns. That last one made Velthar freeze. What leaked documents? His intelligence officer pulled up files on a secondary screen. They were financial records. Coalition leadership accounts. They showed resource allocations, profit distributions, and benefits that went to high-ranking officials from military operations. "These are classified," Belthar shouted. "How did they get distributed?" "Unknown, sir. They appeared simultaneously on multiple ship networks approximately 10 minutes ago." Somin, sitting in her Earth-based command center, allowed herself a small smile. She had released those documents at precisely the calculated moment. Not fake documents. Real ones obtained through careful monitoring of coalition systems. The truth was often more damaging than any lie. On the coalition flagship, chaos was spreading. More ships were reporting technical difficulties that prevented them from taking attack positions. Crew members were openly questioning orders. Communication channels were flooding with conflicting messages. Velthar tried to establish order. "All ships, this is Commander Velthar. Stand down from attack posture. Hold current positions. I will address these concerns directly," but the response was fragmented. Some ships obeyed. Others continued demanding answers. 3 ships announced they were withdrawing from the fleet entirely, their Vex crews declaring they would no longer participate in unjustified military actions. On Earth, Mina watched the tactical display with disbelief. "It's working. The fleet is falling apart." "Not falling apart," Gion corrected. "Fracturing. There's a difference. They're not attacking each other. They're just questioning, doubting, refusing to move forward without understanding why." "How did we do this in 24 hours? "We didn't," Gion said. "The Coalition did this over 400 years. They built a structure based on forced hierarchy and suppressed resentment. We just gave people permission to remember how much they resented it." Hyunwoo pulled up more data on his screen. "Commander Velthar is trying to contact individual ship captains. He's attempting to rebuild command structure through direct communication." "He'll fail," Soman said confidently. "Watch." On the flagship, Velthar was indeed failing. Every conversation led to more questions. Captains who had followed orders for decades suddenly wanted explanations. Junior officers were demanding evidence that Earth posed a genuine threat. Engineers were refusing to maintain weapon systems until ethical concerns were addressed. The Coalition fleet wasn't rebelling. It was thinking. And thought was poison to blind obedience. A new transmission came through. It was from Earth. Gion's face appeared on the main screen, calm as always. "Commander Velthar, I hope you're well." "What have you done?" Velthar demanded. "Done? I've done nothing, Commander. I simply showed your crew members some historical records. I introduced some of them to human concepts like meritocracy and question-based leadership. I may have mentioned a few interesting facts about coalition structure. But I certainly didn't order 3 of your ships to refuse commands. That was their choice. You manipulated them, did I? Or did I just give them information and let them make their own decisions? Isn't that what intelligent beings do? Make informed choices?" Velthar wanted to destroy something. His own fleet was questioning him, and the human was speaking to him as if they were equals. As if Earth had won something. "You think this changes anything?" he said. "I still have 37 functional ships. I can still destroy your planet." "You could," Gion agreed. "But will you?" "Commander, let me tell you what happens if you attack Earth now. First, those 3 ships that refused your orders will spread word throughout the Coalition. Other Vex crews will hear that their people stood up and questioned authority. Other lower-ranked species will remember they have a choice. Second, the financial records that were leaked will reach Coalition civilian populations. They'll see that their leaders profit from wars while common soldiers die. Third, you'll prove that the Coalition only maintains unity through force and fear, which will make every species wonder if they should start looking for alternatives." "You're speculating," Velthar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Am I?" "Commander, you've conquered 16 species before us. Have any of them ever resisted like this? Have any of them ever made your own crews question orders?" Silence. "We're different," Gion continued. "We don't fight the way you expect. We don't build bigger weapons. We build better strategies. We identify fractures in systems and apply pressure until those fractures spread. Your coalition has existed for 400 years, held together by military strength and rigid hierarchy. That's a stable system, but it's also brittle, and we've just shown you how brittle it is. What do you want?" Velthar asked. The question came out tired and defeated. "Right now, I want you to withdraw your fleet and return to Coalition space. I want time for both our species to think about what happened here." I want the Coalition to consider whether conquest is really the best way to expand. And if I refuse? If I attack anyway? Then you'll win, Jian admitted. You'll destroy Earth, but you'll lose something much more valuable. You'll lose the certainty that your fleet will follow orders next time. You'll lose the assumption that conquered species stay conquered. You'll lose the foundation that the Coalition was built on. Velthar looked around his bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. But their eyes held something new. Questions. Doubts. The beginning of independent thought. He made his decision. All ships, he said slowly, stand down from attack positions. Prepare to return to Coalition space. Relief washed through the bridge, through the fleet, through Earth itself. Jian bowed slightly on the screen. Thank you, Commander. I hope we can speak again under better circumstances. The transmission ended. Velthar sat in his command chair, feeling the weight of the first defeat in his long military career. He hadn't lost because of better weapons. He hadn't lost because of tactical superiority. He had lost because a small group of humans had understood something about warfare that the Coalition had forgotten. Wars aren't won by destroying enemies. They're won by making enemies destroy themselves. As the Coalition fleet began its long journey home, Velthar wondered what he would tell his superiors. How do you explain that you were defeated by words and ideas? How do you admit that your own crew's doubts had been more powerful than the enemy's weapons? On Earth, Minho finally allowed himself to relax. We actually did it. We won without firing a single shot. We didn't win, Jian corrected gently. We survived. And we taught the Coalition that humanity has to be approached differently. That's not victory. That's just the opening move in a much longer game. What's the next move? Jian smiled. Now we show them that humans are more valuable as partners than as conquered subjects. Now we prove that our way of thinking can help the Coalition, not just threaten it. 3 months had passed since the Coalition fleet withdrew from Earth's orbit. 3 months of quiet tension while the galaxy decided what to do about humanity. Now Jian stood in a massive chamber on the Coalition Central Station, facing representatives from 17 species. This was the moment that would determine Earth's future. The chamber was circular, with representatives seated in ascending rows around a central platform. It reminded Jian of an ancient amphitheater, designed to make the person in the center feel small and surrounded. She stood there calmly, her simple gray suit contrasting with the elaborate garments worn by Coalition leaders. The Chief Arbiter, a tall being with silver skin and 6 graceful arms, spoke first. Jian of Earth, you stand before the Coalition Council to answer for actions taken against Coalition vessels. You are accused of manipulating Coalition crew members, spreading dissent among allied species and interfering with military operations. How do you respond? With respect, Jian said clearly. I respond by asking a question. What exactly did humans do? The Arbiter's eyes narrowed. You know what you did? I know what we're accused of doing, Jian replied. But I want the Council to state it specifically. Did we fire weapons? Did we damage ships? Did we harm any Coalition crew members? Silence filled the chamber. Finally, another representative spoke. He was from a species called the Dorak, who had been with the Coalition for 300 years. You didn't need to fire weapons, he said. You poisoned minds. You turned crews against their commanders. You made loyal soldiers question their duty. I see, Jian said. So the charge is that we provided information and allowed individuals to make their own choices based on that information. Is that correct? You manipulated them, someone shouted from the upper rows. Did we? Jian asked. Or did we simply show them facts they hadn't been allowed to see before? Commander Velthar is in this chamber. He can tell you. Did humans ever lie to anyone? Did we fabricate evidence? Did we create false information? Velthar sat in the military section, his expression unreadable. After a long moment, he stood. No, he admitted. The humans provided only accurate information. Historical records, Coalition documents, factual observations about crew hierarchy. They never lied. Then the real charge, Jian said, is that we told truths the Coalition found inconvenient. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some representatives agreed with her. Others shouted that truth used as a weapon was still a weapon. The Chief Arbiter had to call for order 3 times before the noise subsided. The issue, the Arbiter said carefully, is not whether your information was true. The issue is that you deliberately destabilized coalition unity. You made species question the structure that has maintained peace for 400 years. Has it maintained peace? Jian asked. Or has it maintained control? There's a difference. Explain. Jian took a breath. This was the critical moment. The coalition conquered 16 species before encountering humanity. Those species are members now, but they didn't choose membership. They were forced. For 400 years, you've maintained order through military strength and rigid hierarchy. That's not peace. That's suppression. Strong words from a species that narrowly avoided conquest, a representative sneered. True, Jian acknowledged. But avoiding conquest taught us something important. It taught us that your system is fragile. It only works as long as no one questions it. The moment someone offers an alternative perspective, the entire structure becomes unstable. Then you admit you threatened the coalition. I admit we showed that the coalition's foundation has weaknesses. But that's not a threat. That's an opportunity. Opportunity? The arbiter leaned forward. Explain. Jian activated a holographic display. It showed data from the past 3 months. Since the incident at Earth, 3 interesting things have happened. First, productivity in coalition vessels has increased by 12%. Do you know why? Because engineers like the Vex are being consulted about technical decisions. Because lower-ranked species are being asked for input. Because crews work better when they feel valued. She changed the display. Second, intercrew conflicts have decreased by 18%. When people believe they have a voice, they have less reason to fight for recognition. When merit matters more than species hierarchy, resentment decreases. Another image appeared. Third, and most importantly, 3 new civilizations have approached the coalition about voluntary membership. Not forced integration, not conquest, actual partnership. Do you know what changed? They heard about Earth. They heard that the coalition might be evolving into something more than a military empire. The chamber was quiet now. Representatives were studying the data carefully. Hyunwoo stepped forward. He had been waiting at the edge of the platform, ready to support Jiyeon's argument. Honored Council, I am Hyunwoo, historian of Earth. I've studied thousands of years of human conflict. What we learned, painfully and slowly, is that empires built on force always fall. Always. It's not a matter of if, but when. The coalition has lasted 400 years. That's impressive, but it won't last 400 more if it doesn't change. Change to what? A representative demanded. To a genuine alliance, Jiyeon answered. To a structure where species join because they want to, not because they're forced to. To a system where the best ideas win regardless of which species suggested them. To a coalition that maintains unity through mutual benefit instead of military threat. Idealistic nonsense, someone muttered. Is it? Somin stepped forward, her fingers moving across a portable display. I've analyzed coalition communication networks for 3 months. With permission from your Security Council, of course. I found patterns that suggest the current system is already failing. Dissatisfaction among lower-ranked species is at record highs. Efficiency is down. Costs are up. The structure is eating itself from the inside. She displayed graphs and data streams. But here's what's interesting. In the 3 ships where crews refused orders during the Earth incident, those same metrics have reversed. Satisfaction is up. Efficiency is up. Costs are down. Why? Because those crews experimented with human ideas about merit-based advancement and open communication, and it worked. Velthar stood again. Every eye turned to him. He was respected among the military class, and his opinion carried weight. I was humiliated at Earth, he said slowly. I had overwhelming force, and I retreated without firing a shot. For 3 months, I've tried to understand how humans defeated me. The answer is simple and disturbing. They didn't defeat me. They made me defeat myself by showing me truths I had been ignoring. He looked directly at Jiyeon. The human is correct. The coalition structure is brittle. We've mistaken suppression for stability. We've confused obedience with loyalty. And we've been lucky that no one challenged us before. But luck runs out. The chief arbiter studied Velthar for a long moment. What do you propose, Commander? I propose we listen, Velthar said. Not surrender. Not submit. Just listen to what humans have learned about sustainable systems. We don't have to accept everything. But we should at least consider their perspective. Minho stepped forward now. He had been nervous about this moment, but he kept his voice steady. Earth offers the following. We will share our knowledge of strategic thinking, conflict resolution, and organizational psychology. We will provide consultation on how to restructure the coalition into a more stable alliance. We will help identify and address sources of internal tension before they become crises. In exchange, we ask for full membership status, not as conquered subjects, but as equal partners. Impossible, several representatives said simultaneously. Why? Jian asked. Because we're technologically behind? That didn't stop us from outmaneuvering your fleet. Because we're new? Every species was new once. Because we're different? That's exactly why we're valuable. We think differently. We approach problems from angles you haven't considered. That's not a weakness. That's an asset. The debate continued for hours. Arguments for and against. Concerns about setting precedent. Questions about whether humans could be trusted. Fears about what other species might demand if Earth received special treatment. Finally, the chief arbiter called for a vote. The question before the council is simple. Does Earth join the coalition as a conquered subject under standard terms, or as an equal member under unprecedented terms? We vote now, Jian held her breath. She had done everything she could, presented every argument, demonstrated every advantage. Now it was up to them. The vote was close. Some species voted against Earth out of fear of change. Others voted against out of pride, unwilling to admit that humans had something to teach them. But enough voted in favor. Enough recognized that the coalition needed to evolve or die. The motion passes, the arbiter announced. Earth is granted full membership status as an equal partner in the Galactic Coalition. Furthermore, Earth representatives will establish a strategic advisory council to assist with coalition restructuring. Jian felt relief wash through her. They had done it. Not just survival, but acceptance. Not just membership, but respect. Over the following months, Earth's integration transformed the coalition. Minho established an academy where humans taught strategic thinking to any species that wanted to learn.